Welcome, and thank you for joining our webinar on ERP Evaluation and Selection. My name is Ali Pakalnis, and I will help facilitate our webinar today. Before we get started, here are a few tips on using the Zoom platform so you can engage with our presenters and have the best experience possible. You should see a Zoom toolbar with icons for Ask a Question and Raise Your Hand. Please use the Ask a Question feature to submit a question or comment. If you need any assistance, click on the Raise Your Hand button and I will connect with you to help. We encourage you to ask questions throughout the presentation, and we will do our best to answer them all. If we didn't answer your question, we will follow up with you personally after the presentation. Within 72 hours of the webinar, you will receive a link to download the slide deck and recorded presentation. And with that, I would like to introduce you to our presenters, Lindy Antonelli, Talbot Hardy, and Brandt Kucharski.
Thanks, Allie. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today to hear about Brandt's ERP journey and some of the takeaways we find when we are implementing clients on new ERP systems. So I'm a partner at Armanino and have been in this sort of ERP switcher re-implementation space for about 30 years. So again, thanks for joining. Talbot?
Yes. Hi, everyone. I am Talbot Hardy. I'm a fellow at Armanino and head up our CIO advisory services as part of our strategy and transformation consulting team. Nice to meet you.
Hi, everyone. I am Brandt Kucharski. I am the Chief Accounting Officer of Ethos. Spent many years as a Chief Accounting Officer at Grubhub for 10 plus years, and then spent some time in public accounting. And I'm excited to share my experiences and kind of walk through my ERP journey.
Thanks, Brandt, for joining us as our guest, and for Talbot for your conversation as well. So our learning objectives today, we're going to answer some of your common concerns when selecting an ERP system and determine how to align the requirements with your business goals, and then tips and tricks for conducting ERP research, how to involve stakeholders and the like. Next slide. So just a little bit about Armanino. We are a nationwide CPA and consultancy firm with many locations around the country, as you can see, with physical office locations, but we have clients and employees in nearly every state in the country. So we're very spread out, and we are nationwide. We can move on to the next slide. So we do have a lot of accolades to our name. So we're very proud of our consulting accolades we get, but also becoming a B certified corporation for our ESG purpose, as well as many other awards that we've won. Go on. So we want to move right into ERP selection criteria. I think you've got a polling question. Okay, so everyone should see their polling question. So what ERP or financial management system are you on today? Please just check one, either QuickBooks, which we know a lot of you are on today, with a cloud-based solution or an on-premise legacy solution. And we'll wait a few seconds here. And Brandt, while we're waiting here, you guys were on QuickBooks at Grubhub before you made the move to the cloud. So, any thoughts about how you were outgrowing QuickBooks or pains that you had in that time?
I mean, we're going back to the early days of Grubhub. We were, maybe $1 million of revenue, still a private company, and, haven't really raised our major round of fundraising. And QuickBooks, that period of time, was dying on us, right? We were, it was taking hours to do things. It was, not really functioning how we needed to function. Didn't have the controls we need, didn't have the approvals. Bank recs took forever. We were writing at that time, 3,000 checks a month, because if you remember, Grubhub works by, there's an order that happens. We take a commission, then we cut a check or ACH to the restaurant. We only had like 3,000 restaurants, and just even reconciling 3,000 checks a month back then, this is 10, 11, 12, 13 years ago, was taking forever, and it couldn't really integrate to our bank. And it really didn't integrate to our ordering system, if you remember, Lindy. And
Right.
everything was manual. And, we're trying to take the spreadsheet of all the orders that happened and try and get that data over into QuickBooks to be able to record it and pay it. And it was just a nightmare. We were outgrowing it. And, back then we were growing triple digits and, on a path to go public, which went public in 14, and the system just wasn't working.
Yeah, I remember the day you and I first met in 2010, and we, you were on QuickBooks and you had a lot of pain. I remember you telling me back then, we're going to have to just throw more bodies into it if we don't find a technology solution to this problem.
Yeah, I mean, we would have had to hire, a person who literally all they did was take data, in Excel and just put it into QuickBooks manually, and, just wasn't efficient. Plus, it wasn't accurate. And, I could see us, if we didn't have the right system in place, we would have had material weakness when we went public and control failures, and the auditors wouldn't be able to rely on the system, which would result in a lot more testing of transactions and more fees, and just really could have disrupted our IPO process at Grubhub.
Yeah, so there was a goal in mind, which was to go public, but then there was the problem of tossing money at it. So extra cost, extra people time, extra time, potential for errors, issues with going public. So there were a lot of, in those early days, issues that Grubhub had. Let's see the answers to our polling question here. Yep, as we suspected, about a little over 2/3 of you are on QuickBooks today. So no surprise. I mean, I would have expected that. And then some on cloud and fewer on legacy. What was that number, Allie? 20? Oh, no less. 8% on legacy. Okay, great. Let's go to this slide. So a selection criteria, like this is why you would pick a new system. There are, in my experience of over 30 years of being in this business, we know that clients look for functionality, fit, the financial case, as we were just building the total cost of ownership of doing nothing for Grubhub, and the future. So let's see what all these mean, and then we'll have another discussion on it. So by functionality, I mean modules and features that you need to run your business, specific to your business. And then fit, so what is the best fit for your leaders and for the industry that you're in and the business requirements that you have. Financial, we were just talking about this, building the business case. You want to move to a new solution that gives you the lowest total cost of ownership and a rapid return on investment. And then future, pick your partners, not just a software platform, but your implementation partner as well. So Brandt, we learned a little bit about Grubhub and some of the problems. And so then when you started your ERP journey and started, looking at all the systems that were out there 12, 13 years ago, how did you guys go about it? I know you had several people involved, and then what was kind of, how did you start this evaluation process?
I mean, I think we looked obviously at a couple of the household names back then that were, cloud-based solutions. For us, the project was as much of a new system as also an engineering effort, if you remember, Lindy, right? Because, Grubhub was doing 1,000 orders a day. When I left, we were doing 700,000 orders a day, right? And all that data came over from our database into our ERP. And, we had to build an API to bring that data over from, our database and all of our custom software into the ERP. And it really has never been done. So, part of our evaluation was really, finding a partner that obviously knew how to do systems, but also had engineering and, also had engineering staff, right?
Mm-hmm.
And had the capability to really work with our engineers, because it was a large engineering effort to really build the system, to code the data and bring it in and assemble it so we can report on it, right? And it's looking at who's on the bench there, who do you have, what experience, and getting the confidence of our CTO. Like our CTO was heavily involved, if you remember, right?
Yes. Yeah, he was very, very involved, and that was really, in Grubhub's particular case, I think the partnership between Grubhub and Armanino was really the key to it, because we had to integrate all that data into the GL every night so that you could get your reports, so that you could get the SEC reporting, get your internal audit done, get your stakeholders reports, get your SEC reporting done. So it all started with those integrations.
Yeah, I mean, every attribute of our orders, if the person ordered in New York, if they ordered on a cell phone, or whatever means that we capture the data, the attributes were captured, and that was pushed through to Intact, right? And
Yeah.
you figure that each order may have 10 lines in it. Even back then we were putting through hundreds of thousands of lines a month of data and entries that were kind of coming through, and then trying to tie it out and make sure it's right, and then the system worked great, and we had to build that with your team, Wendy, right?
Yeah. And the key to that was we had our talented integrations team, but we also had the functionality in the solution, which is called dimensions. So we were tagging the data with all those different dimensions, and to get the reporting out to what's the end game? It was to close the books and get the reports out, right? Quick and automated. So it was a really good work effort. And it was pretty quick. I mean, we started talking in December, January. You picked us in May, and we were live by the end of November. The only reason why it took about a month or so longer than it normally would is, I remember you, Brandt, you got another round of funding in the middle of it. So you had to put our project on hold for like a month.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, so
the process was smooth, fast, and I always tell people, this, Lindy, too, that if you can handle our size of company back then, right, work with anyone, and it just had so much data, it always worked very well for us.
Yeah, that's great. Well, it's a good story. It's a great partnership, and we'll come back to some other questions later. I do want to go to another slide. I think we have another polling question. Yep. Okay, question 2. Are you considering upgrading your current ERP system? Or, like 2/3 of you, are you consider upgrading from QuickBooks? So you can choose one. Yes, within 6 months. Yes, within a year. And not considering at this time. So I kind of went through the timeline a little bit, but Brandt, you guys made the decision. You did the whole evaluation from January till like March, and you decided, and then we kicked off in early May. So it was about a 3-month process at that time. And did you feel rushed, or how did you feel about that timeline?
No, I mean, we had many meetings with the vendors, just given, we kind of knew that, back then we were the only person doing really what we were doing in the market, right? So,
right,
we were the first online food order platform, and, we knew we were growing like this, and, it was very important that the system we chose didn't die out, or it was very important that it could scale as we got big, because we knew we were going public in a few years. So
yeah,
a lot of people were involved. We had board approval involved. There's a lot of stakeholders, a lot of meetings of looking at the tech stack, talking to, the CTO of Intact, Aaron Harris, and
yeah,
really just making sure that the system would scale, which it did.
it did. Scaled beautifully. All right, let's take a look at our answers here. Okay, so about half are not considering, but half of you are considering within a year, 6 months to a year. So, and that's about right. It all depends upon timing. As Brandt said, he mentioned many reasons for needing to upgrade. If you identify those pains and can afford, I always say, if a client comes to me and says, can I afford to do this? My answer is, can you afford not to do it? Especially in the case of like a Grubhub here, where if they didn't do it, it was going to be severe, additional pain and suffering from their finance team, and probably losing sleep at night as well. All right, let's close this and go to the next slide. I believe this is for Talbot. Yep. Hey, Talbot.
Yes. Hi there. Okay. Just a few things. I mean, this webinar is about selection and selecting the right solution for your company. And as I like this slide talks about the industry considerations, I really think that there are three major drivers for that decision making. One of them is obviously industry, because I think that's important if you've got some specific industry or process related needs. But also the complexity of your business and the expected versatility that you will need going forward. So how the degree of change in your business going forward all become really important decision-making factors in here. And there's on the next slide, I'm going to talk about strategies to kind of think about each one of those. But when we think about industry, we kind of have a couple different choices with software strategy. One of them is to go with a solution that is industry specific. So it goes deep in taking care of the requirements for that industry. And then another strategy might be to go with a more generic platform that can take care of those considerations or can take care of those requirements, but might offer more integration capability or flexibility around what you can do with it. For each of these industries, there are some really solid solutions out there. And I think looking at if you were going through a selection process, including at least one leading industry specific solution to compare that to maybe what would be a market leading platform solution would be a good suggestion, especially if you've got some unique business requirements specific to that industry. Okay.
I totally agree.
All right, so let's look at platform strategy here for a second with the next slide. Okay, so if we think back, I've been doing this for a few decades, implementing systems. I think the very first kind of big change, client server ERP implementation that I was involved in was like a very early stage of SAP, where we were moving away from I think it was an Ask Man solution in a telecom industry. So
Still have the scars on your back
I
from that
still
one?
have it. I still have my German translator for the error codes. Yes. I would say when we look back at that, and I think this is true for even a couple of decades ago, you would see, I think, a certain percentage of clients would have some degree of in-house applications development supporting basically that ERP tech stack, if you will. That's especially true if they have specific industry needs, A, and B, whatever they were buying from a third party was kind of relegated to their financial system. And so what they might use for their operations or planning or their supply chain or inventory, they might be have created their own, but then tried to integrate that into a third-party solution. So together, because it kind of shows the four different types of strategies and how the industry has evolved. And the ERP solutions today are nothing like what they used to be when we go back just a couple of decades. So, but way back when, there was a prevalence of kind of in-house development going on around ERP. That has changed pretty dramatically over the years. And for, if we click the clock back a decade or so, there was a huge focus on third-party applications, a lot of that being, most of that, if not all of that, being on-premise applications that you would have to invest in some level of customization to get to the process that you wanted to run in your business. And that customization kind of created a one-off situation where you had to take care of that and carry that forward with you through any migrations to new releases of that application. So there was kind of this boat anchor effect of those customizations as you had to carry them forward. There's a heavy kind of tech debt associated with that. And a lot of clients struggled in their IT departments to keep up with and maintain themselves on the later releases of that technology. And we're still kind of fighting through that today, even as clients are trying to get themselves from those on-prem ERP solutions into the cloud. Over the last few years, we have a couple of different strategy choices. One of those in the lower right I'm pointing out to is what we would call a best of breed solution integration. So a lot of the top ERP providers are, providing a nice, ERP core that can be added to. You might add from a procurement standpoint or from a manufacturing processing standpoint, or some other part of the business might be added on to that, and there might be some level of third-party integration that you could leverage into that, or maybe even you might want to use an iPaaS, which is an integration platform as a service to bridge between those different third-party systems. And so that technology is allowing people to pick the components that are best suited for their business and kind of stitch them together with integration. It does create a different, you still have to have all of that moving forward with releases to keep it current. And a lot of times clients will get tangled up in lifting that integration and keeping paces with the different parts that are moving because their release schedules are not all aligned, et cetera. So some challenges with that, but definitely providing less tech debt and an ease of kind of strategy execution around that, because you can really leverage third-party technology. The last one in the upper right is what I see increasingly happening, which is where I have an integrated platform strategy. And while I might have ISV solutions, which are different than best of breed solution integrations in this way, those ISV solutions are ISV partners that need to keep orchestration and they need to keep the cadence that goes with the release schedule of that integrated platform. So whether we're talking, a Sage Intacct or a Microsoft Dynamics or whatever we're talking about there, those ISV partners know what that release schedule needs to be. They know that they have their own testing to qualify and keep up with that. And so you can create what, we call this evergreen effect around the release cadence. And we that gives benefits to the client as well, because these integrated platforms have this abstraction layer that allows you to tailor them or customize them in a way that doesn't get you boxed into a corner. So
That's Talbot. Yeah. From our earlier talk here with Brandt, it really seems like Grubhub falls in that top right in the green box.
I would agree. I mean, it sounds he's moved to the cloud. I mean, I don't want to speak for you, Brandt, so we'll give you a second to speak for yourself. But you've moved to the cloud. You've done your integration strategy. You were very focused on scalability and not getting trapped by your own customization. What are your thoughts on that?
I agree with you. We had, a custom database, custom ordering software that was all cloud-based that we built. We had to integrate with, the ERP Intacct. And, one of the things I didn't mention earlier is that, we put in 15 different Intacct systems into 15 different companies roughly that we bought. So from, 2010 up until 2020, we were consistently doing these integrations and, trying to build data feeds from custom order platforms from companies we bought, right? So, some of those may have been on-prem given the company wasn't, as sophisticated that we acquired. Most were cloud-based, which would be the upper green.
Yeah. And then by tech debt, one of our attendees has a question, Talbot, if we could just quickly cover what tech debt means, and then we need to move on. What do you mean by
Sure.
tech debt?
Tech debt is the debt if I don't maintain something. So let's say you were on a prior version and new versions have come out and you're really running into a situation where your company is running on an obsolete version. The tech debt is basically the debt that you are going to have to pay to get that thing upgraded into something that is supportable. So as you continue to kind of fall behind, you're basically building debt and risk for your company as you go forward. Question about ISV. So integrated solution vendor. And so that's what that is, or ISV partner, integrated service in some case, but solution in others is what we're talking about there. I will know that there's a difference that we need to think about when it comes to these platforms. So I would call some of them are embedded solutions, which are ideal. So any case where you have something like a Microsoft Dataverse or common data services model, where the partner, the ISV partner that's making their solution is working in the same, is installed within that platform and embedded within that platform and running in that common data services, you are basically eliminating the need for that integration. It's all right there. We're not moving data from one island to the next.
Great, thanks, Talbot. Let's move on. I think we've got another polling question. Here it is. Okay, is there a specific event in your org driving you to need a new ERP? The ones that did say they were looking, about half of you said you were going to look in the next year. So we'll get yes or no. And for Brandt and for Grubhub, I mean, that was the goal of going IPO and the goal of, not hiring 1 million bodies to keep up with the scale and growth that they had with the scalability. So, and I'm sure, Talbot, you've seen that too over the years, when you're asking a client what they're, why now, why is the need? It's really, is it something specific? So let's see what our answers are. So about, a third said yes. So great. Let's go on to the next slide. So thanks for joining us today, guys. We do have another second in our series coming up on September 6th. Please register for that. It's going to be implementation and integrations, and the three of us will be back having another lively discussion. Brandt, we really appreciate your time today. I know it's valuable, and we appreciate you sharing your thoughts with our audience. And Talbot, for your participation as well. This was great. And I hope everyone has a great rest of their day, and we'll see you next time, hopefully.
Thanks
Have a good one.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.